Today in my devotions, one of the passages I read was in the book of Habakkuk. And it is a passage where Habakkuk is seeing what's going on around him, doesn't understand why God's not doing anything, seems to think that God's not taking care of business the way he should. And he questioned God. And while he's waiting for his response in chapter 2, he says this: I will stand at my guard post, station myself on the lookout tower. I will watch to see what he will say to me and what I should reply about my complaint. Habakkuk here is saying, I'm going to wait. I'm willing to wait. I'm going to be looking out. He says he's going to station himself, on the lookout tower. Means he's going to be someplace, like if you're, looking over the land, you want to be someplace high, a lookout tower, to see what's going on. Habakkuk is looking for God. Habakkuk is expecting a response from God. And he says, I want to know how I should reply. How should I deal with my complaint? So Habakkuk isn't just being grouchy and unreasonable. He wants to get to the truth. And that's a pretty cool thing. Do you and I want to get to the truth, or do we just complain to God? Do we really want to understand what God's doing? Or do we just want to complain? Do we just want to try to get our way? Do we just want to try to make things happen in the time frame and all that we expect? But here is God's answer then, starting in verse 2. Write down this vision, clearly inscribe it on tablets so one may easily read it. God's saying, write this down. When somebody tells you that, they're confident that it's going to happen. They're not going to tell you to write something down if it's not going to happen, because they don't want you to remember. They're hoping you'll forget. But God said, write this down so anyone can read it. Anyone can see what I said. So there's no question about what's going on. And he goes on to say, for the vision is yet for the appointed time. It testifies about the end and will not lie. Though it delays, wait for it, since it will certainly come and not be late. God's saying, okay, the vision hasn't happened yet, but it hasn't gotten to the appointed time. God has a plan. There's an appointed time for everything. There was an appointed time for our birth. There was an appointed time for our death, and for all the different stuff that happens in between. There's an appointed time for everything. God's plan for Jesus to come back, there's an appointed time for that. Just like in this case, there was an appointed time for the vision to happen. For what God had promised Habakkuk was going to happen. It was going to happen at a certain time. But that time wasn't here yet. And says it testifies about the end. Okay, when this happens, it's going to testify about the end. It's going to testify about what's going on, and it will not lie. So God is telling Habakkuk, you need to be patient. You need to just wait, because my timing is perfect. You don't have to worry about this thing. You don't have to get upset about it. You don't have to stress about it. Just relax and wait for me. He says, though it delays, wait for it. See, he's telling him, I understand you look at it as a delay, but God doesn't look at it as a delay, because his timing is perfect. Nothing's ever late, nothing's ever early. So there's no surprises. There's, no setbacks in God's plan, with his plan. But in Habakkuk's eyes, or in our eyes, there's delays. He says it will certainly come and not be late. God's promise is that what I am doing is going to happen at the right time and is not going to be late. We may have a vision for what God wants to do for us. We may see the stuff that's going on around us and think that something has to be done. We may look at the promises in the Bible and say, why isn't God doing something? He says he's against evil. He says he's going to destroy the evil ones. Why isn't it happening yet? It's not the appointed time. God gives us a vision for what he wants to happen in our lives, or what we're going to be doing in the future. But it hasn't happened yet. God's not late. Patience has a bad reputation today. You know, Christians I've heard say, don't pray for patience, because if you do, you're going to have hard times. There's going to be struggles. But that's how patience grows. That's how you build patience, is through your trials, through your struggles, through these times of not understanding. But in the world today, patience is not a virtue that we should seek after. The world today says, I want it now. You need to have it now. You deserve it now. Grab all the gusto that you can. Grab everything that you can now. It's a give it to me now society that we live in. And that's part of our mindset. We can't help it because we've been in this since birth. And so we naturally adopt some of this impatience. Patient people are sometimes seen as being lazy. Look, well, you're not doing anything. Why aren't you grabbing it? What are you doing just sitting around? Patient people can be seen as indecisive. Not able to make a decision because it seems like they're doing nothing. And when we're waiting for God, patience is a virtue. When we're waiting for God to do something, if God has given us a vision, if God's made a promise in the Bible that hasn't happened yet, and we're waiting for that to happen, patience is a strength. It takes a lot of strength, a lot of love for God, a lot of confidence in God, a lot of faith in God to be able to wait, to not get impatient and try to take care of business ourselves, because that's what happens so often. I've done it myself way too many times. I've gotten impatient, tried to deal with it myself, and created a disaster, created a big, big problem. So we need to learn to be patient. We need to look at patience and waiting through the eyes of God. That it's a way of saying to God, I love you. It's a way of saying to God, I trust you. It's a way of saying to God, my faith is in you and you alone. I am seeking you, God, not the thing that's going to happen. I am seeking you. I really want you. This is what we say to God when we exhibit patience. Learn to be patient. Teach yourself to be patient. Ask God to help you to be patient. Allow God to do that work in you, because with patience comes peace, because we have that confidence that God's going to do what he says he's going to do in his perfect time. So I would challenge you today to seek God, to seek him first over anything that is supposed to happen, allowing God to work his plan to perfection, being ready to do your part when it's your time and when he calls you. Please like, share, and subscribe if this video has been encouraging to you or helped you in any way. Feel free to ask questions, and as always, may God always bless you.